Hey y'all, welcome to Figuring It Out with me, Kelly Renee. We're all figuring it out. How to live the life we want, living our truth, living authentically. It's so good to see y'all. It's been a while. So, what does it even mean to live authentically? For many, living authentically means being real. It means being honest about who we are at our very core and being okay with ourselves. We hear a lot about being real. I remember in the 70s, Coke used to have a tagline, "It's the real thing, Coke," which led to the success of the jingle, "I'd like to buy the world a Coke. I'd like to buy the world." Okay, you don't need to hear me singing. I don't want to scare anybody away. I still get shivers listening to that commercial, though. And in case you don't remember or you never heard it, I'll put a link in the YouTube video in the show notes. It's really cool. Watching that video of those young people from all over the world spoke to me. It still does today. The energy, the diversity, the joy. It's so interesting to me that for lifetimes, people are still trying to be real, young and old, educated and not, rich and poor alike, from all over the world. We're all still figuring it out. Managing relationships, our own agency within those relationships, and how to be true to ourselves while navigating a social system that, quite frankly, many times feels like it's suppressing our individuality. And it can just be so exhausting. See, authenticity requires vulnerability too. And when you think about it, I think you'll agree that every big thing you've ever done in your life required some level of vulnerability. It meant you had to put yourself out there. It was probably scary. And at some level, it was probably some doubt involved. And that's one place vulnerability shows up in a big way. Can I really do this? Should I do this? Dare I do this? And then you take the next step. Remember the first time you told someone you loved them in a romantic way? It was scary as hell. You don't know how they're going to respond. Or you apply for a new job, even today, or go on an interview, make a presentation at a meeting, call a client, make a sales presentation, attend a networking event, or go to the gym for the first time. See, many people don't take that next step because they haven't figured out how to be okay with who they are and how they present in the world. Fear holds them back. I hope fear isn't holding you back. And if it is, no, it's natural. It's completely natural. It's a protection plan our brains have been conditioned with since creation. See, the inability to be vulnerable and show up can and does paralyze us at times. I still get butterflies when I'm speaking to groups or showing up for a video, and yet my showing up will hopefully encourage someone else to step outside their comfort zone and explore their inner self. You see, not one of us is perfect. We all make mistakes. I make plenty of them. And I try to learn from the mistakes and use those times for self improvement. I call it failing forward. But what living authentically is not is an excuse for bad behavior. Living authentically does not mean I get to abuse people, to be disrespectful, or use it as an excuse for poor judgment. It's our responsibility to honor all people, especially those who don't agree with us, which leads us to personal responsibility. Look, we have all been dealt a tough hand from time to time. Perfection and perfect situations are no more than an illusion, though. And although it's fun to sometimes sit and let our minds wander, it's fantasy. It's just not reality. No matter how hard it's been or what you've had to live through, hope for a better tomorrow is real and it is possible. And even you and I can experience joy and fulfillment and peace And for some of us, maybe for the first time. You see, a big part of the struggle is not having our own needs met. Sometimes it feels like we give and give and give, expecting someday someone will begin giving back. Don't hold your breath. Life doesn't necessarily work that way. We need the agency to say enough, enough. That set some boundaries, that protect us, and give us the energy and stamina, and yes, even courage to take the next step. Fundamental to living authentically is self-acceptance, what I like to refer to as radical self-acceptance. As part of the LGBTQIA plus community, being accepted and valued begins with us. When I get okay with me, when I learn to set healthy boundaries, when I learn to meet my basic needs and understand I can't love or have empathy for others before I love and accept myself, that's where real transformation begins. So what stories about you are you telling yourself? Because see, too many of us have internalized the stories that other people told us about life and morality and values and work ethic and every other darn thing under the sun. And we heard it so often as children, and in some cases were shamed and manipulated into believing it that when we grew up and began questioning, we carried that shame forward. See, dealing with emotion and asking questions was frowned upon. For some of us, moving out on our own or going to college was our first experience of real independence. And depending on how structured our family life was the first time we got to make our own choices and decisions. Depending on the narrative we grew up with, lots of judgment and shame came up every time we decided to go against the grain, or we intentionally made choices outside of the safety of what we knew. Now, I use safety kind of loosely here. The safety a lot of us experienced was the predictable outcome, even when it was abusive or traumatic. It was safe because we knew what to expect. Let's face it, sometimes it feels easier to deal with the devil you know than the devil you don't, especially for those of us who never had much freedom growing up. So we take those attitudes and experiences with us into adulthood and begin to make a life for ourselves with the same negative precepts and attitudes our parents, caregivers, and cultural surroundings instilled in us. If you grew up in a conservative Christian home like I did, you spent a ton of time at church. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, revivals, special services, camp meetings, oh, and the list goes on. And don't get me wrong, none of those things in and of themselves are necessarily bad. As a matter of fact, I look forward to any opportunity I had to get out of the house and away from my family. It was the only way I could assert any sense of independence. I spent my energy on things like choir and youth group. And you'd find me taking notes during sermons, sharing them with the pastor later, trying to feel better about myself and in part to keep the boredom away. More importantly, I wanted acknowledgement that I was doing good things. I craved that positive reinforcement. In some respects, I was the ideal kid if you didn't get to know me. If you got to know me or know my family, it wasn't the greatest. From the outside, it looked pretty good. Just don't look too close. If you did look closely, you'd find abuse and drugs and latchkey kids gone wild, living in a presentable home in the burbs. Some call that privilege. I called it pretty messed up. See, it's hard to thrive in those circumstances. It was nearly impossible to have a positive outlook on life. My priority was getting as far away as possible as soon as I could. So at 17, even before I graduated from high school, I joined the Navy. Now, under the terms of my contract, I'd spend the summer at home and go on active duty in September. See, it took a while before I learned that running away wasn't the solution. I did that a lot. Unfortunately, it would take me a long time to understand that running away still left me with me. That was a really tough pill to swallow. See, until I got okay with me, I could stay busy. It's sort of productive in different roles, but there wasn't going to be any real transformation happening. So, yes, self acceptance is important to living authentically. And radical self acceptance doesn't mean I have it all figured out yet. It does mean I've accepted I'm on a lifelong journey, helping as many people as I can along the way. Look, I don't know if any of this resonated with you today, or if you'd like to have a chat about what it means to have a life coach that can support you as you work through some of this stuff. But I'm here, and I'm thinking about y'all today. You know, you're valued, you're loved, you are oh so precious. Remember, life's too short. Be kind, do good. And before I go, I just want to thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen and watch. And if you like what you see, please like, comment, review, and subscribe. And if you don't, no problem. Don't worry about it. We'll see y'all later.